Let's just pray, shall we? Oh, Father God, I just thank you that you have gathered us here today, Lord. Lord, you've been saying various things to me over the past couple of weeks about some of the things that you want me to talk about, Lord. So I pray that whatever is on paper and comes out of my mouth, Lord, that it would be honouring to you and it would be taken by this group of people and, that they would take out of it what you would want from them, Lord. Amen. So last week, Kim was up here and she mentioned that a number of the elders and ministry leaders had all got together a couple of weeks ago and were talking about the vision process that we've been doing for quite some time now. And as a church family, we've been thinking about this quite a lot as individuals and as a community, as a corporate group of people. And we all agree, I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, that there are certain things that are important to us here at Parklands Baptist. And that's namely our relationship with God, our relationship with one another, and our relationship with our community. So today I do want to talk a little bit about family, community, and our relationship with God, and not necessarily in that order. Now, I don't have any pictures today. I thought I'd go low-tech today. I'm even reading off a piece of paper. I'd like you can use your imagination if you like while I'm speaking. You can create pictures in your head. If you want to close your eyes and do that, that's fine. The person next door to you might nudge you a little bit if you start snoring, but no worries about that. No pressure. So when I think about family, I don't just think about my immediate family, and I've got two of them here today, which is really nice. I also think about my preschool family. I've been working where I work for 19 years, and I've worked with a lot of the team there for a good portion of that. A lot of my families have been there for a long time. They bring their multiple children, but I also have these beautiful children that I see often from the time they're in their mother's womb till the time they head off to school, and then they come back for visits. They are my family as well. They're my whānau. They're my second family. And to be honest, a lot of the time that I'm awake, I spend with them. So they're really important to me. And my team of people that I get the privilege of being alongside is also really important to me. So every year, for the last probably 15 years, I host Christmas dinner at my house for my team. And there's a lot of stuff that has to happen in order for that to be done. Most of the time I plan a quiz for them, a little personality quiz, and then I get them a present and we do all of this, and they're all very excited, not knowing what colour they're going to be, what flower they're going to be or whatever. But I've got to say, it's actually really amazing when we do these kind of quizzes, just how spot on they are with a lot of their personality traits, and they all go, oh, that's so right. But I also have to prepare our house for it. Now, if you've ever been to my house at Christmas time, you will see an abundance of Christmas paraphernalia. I love it. I don't get everything out just for my staff do, but it has to be out for the staff do. I have to have all the decorations out, all my houses lit up, batteries and all the lights, things that make music, all of those sorts of things. It's really, really important that I do that. I also have to make sure that the house is clean and tidy, obviously. I also have to make sure that there's enough food. We bring a meal, but there's always has to be extra, and alongside that there has to be some nice treats and maybe a nice little drink or two, so I've got to do that. I also have to even make sure the toilet is clean. All of that has to happen before I feel comfortable having them coming to my house. And I think there's probably a certain expectation from them that if they came to my house and they saw that I was sweeping the floor, or I was moving the furniture, or woe betide the toilet was dirty, they'd kind of go, what has she been doing? Because I always leave early that day. So it takes time and it takes effort. It is a lot of preparation when you are doing something big at your house and you want someone to come and enjoy. It would actually be a whole lot easier if we met at a restaurant. If we did a Secret Santa thing. We don't do that. We do a special game that we have to have a half-hour discussion of the rules on, and that's, again, part of the tradition. But I always have to make sure that there are extra presents, just in case someone's forgotten. So all of that aside leads me to today's story, which is about Martha and Mary. So it's a tale of two sisters. Both have their own personalities. Both are eager to welcome Jesus and to serve and to follow him. But both have a slightly different idea and understanding of what that means. So, the story of Martha and Mary, if you want to look it up, you can. If you believe me when I read it to you, that's good as well. So it's in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. I'll give you 10 seconds to find it if you wish to. I am reading from the New International Version too. So, this is called At the Home of Martha and Mary. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. So she came to Jesus and she said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." So I've often thought about Martha and Mary, and just even this morning, a couple of people said, "It's not really fair for me, Martha. Here she is trying to do the right thing." So I thought I'd explore the Martha and Mary story a little bit and see where we go to. So Martha lived in the town of Bethany, and from the first line in this reading, it would seem that Martha was a woman of independent means. The home that she has welcomed Jesus into is described as her home. There's no Mr. Martha, but maybe she's a widow. Maybe she has been a shrewd investor and managed to amass some money and bought herself a lovely home somewhere. Maybe she had parents who died and left her in charge of the younger siblings. However it goes, it's her home that she's welcoming people into. What we do know about Martha is that she had siblings, obviously. She had Mary and she had Lazarus, who comes on a little bit later. But I've always thought that Martha and Lazarus were younger siblings, hence the reason maybe she's caring for them. It's also difficult to ascertain how much of a relationship Martha and Mary had with Jesus prior to this event. Certainly by the time that Lazarus was raised from the dead, they were described as close friends. And we see that when Jesus weeps along with Mary. But maybe this was the first time that they met, and I'm falling apart here. This is the problem with glasses, isn't it? However it happened, Martha went against the conventions of the time. She actually did something that women didn't do. She invited multiple men into her house. That was not the done thing. She was an unconventional woman in a very conventional time. There was possibly not the safety of men in her household to make sure that everything was above board. I think Martha recognised the uniqueness of Jesus and wanted to honour him by showing him hospitality, which is great. But remember, Martha met Jesus and invited him. Imagine if Jesus came to your street and you walked outside and said, "Hey, Jesus, come and have some lunch." Would you be prepared for that? Would you have enough food in the house? Would you have picked up all the washing that's on the floor? Would you have tidied the bench? Martha probably felt really, really excited at having invited Jesus, but she was probably also really stressed at the thought that this really important person was coming to her house and things weren't really ready for him. Now, if Jesus came to your house, what would you do? What say you have a special chair, but the cat's been sitting on it and it's covered in cat fur? Do you get Jesus to sit there, or do you make him sit in the smaller chair? What do you do? Martha probably faced exactly those same challenges. So of course she rushed around trying to get things organised and busy. Maybe Martha had counted on Mary helping her out. Maybe she had thought, Mary's going to be there, she can help me tidy things up, then we can do it twice as fast, and then I'll have time to sit and talk to Jesus. I'll make sure he's got everything he needs, he's going to be well fed, he's going to be looked after, his friends will be cared for, but I can sit down with him. Well, we know that that didn't happen. Not that page. Mary didn't help Martha. Instead, Mary plonked herself right down in front of Jesus and sat at his feet. Again, she may have also joined in the conversation with Jesus and the disciples as if she was their equal. But we know in that culture that that was not something that women did. Mary, like her sister Martha, was also unconventional. She went against the cultural norms by sitting at Jesus' feet. She should have been with her sister. Sorry, I thought you were going to come and tell me something. She should have been with her sister helping, but instead she sat. So what went wrong? Was it bad for Martha to serve and Mary to sit? Martha was doing her best to be hospitable, to show honour to Jesus and to make sure he felt comfortable. But even though Martha was an unconventional woman, she was still bound by the cultural norms of her time. So for her, it was natural to expect Mary to help. Why she tried to get Jesus involved in this, I actually don't know. No idea. Maybe she had quietly tried to get Mary to help. Come and help me. And Mary either chose to ignore her, as younger sisters often do, or maybe she just was too engrossed in what was happening with Jesus. Maybe she thought that as Jesus was the alpha male, she could go and enlist his help to make sure that he could remind Mary of her responsibilities. Or maybe she was just slightly envious of Mary sitting there soaking up Jesus while she was doing all the work. So Jesus' response to Martha sometimes seems like it's a bit rough. Martha, Martha, you're busy and worried about all of these things. Mary's got it right. I don't think Jesus meant it as a criticism. I think Jesus wanted to remind Martha of something. I think he wanted to remind Martha that the most important thing was the time spent with him. That all of these other things pale into insignificance. So the relationship between him and Mary, and indeed between him and us, is what's important, not the fussing and the bothering. So I tried to find a timeline for Martha and Mary's encounters with Jesus, and I'm not a biblical scholar, so if I've got this wrong, my apologies, you can tell me about it later, but if you don't know the difference, it sounds pretty good to me. So what I've read suggests that this was the first occasion, and they may have been passing acquaintances, I don't know, but this is the first time when we see Martha and Mary with Jesus. The next one is when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, and the last time we sort of see Martha and Mary in this context is when just before Jesus' final Passover, 6 days, when he again comes to their house and Mary pours perfume over Jesus' feet and wipes them with her hair for the time to come when Jesus will be crucified. There is one little line in John 12 and verse 2 that says that Martha served the food. Perhaps by this time, Martha, having built relationship with Jesus, was enough for her to know that she could gladly serve him without feeling hard done by. So the other part of my things to talk about was being neighbourly. And when Colin asked me to speak today, he suggested Martha and Mary, which is fine, but then he also sent me a few chapters from a book on being neighbourly and connecting with people. I actually found them really intimidating. They suggested street parties and knocking on random people's doors, and those sorts of thoughts just absolutely and utterly fill me with dread. So when I reflect on where we're going with our visioning process, I feel comfortable with the thought of deepening my relationship with God, although it's actually not always easy. Recently, our home group has done a series on prayer, and one of the weeks we were talking about contemplative prayer, which to me is basically just stopping doing my thing and giving myself over to God, being still and knowing that God is God, and allowing time for me to connect with him and let him speak and minister to me. We live such busy lives. Like Martha, we can be bothered by the needs of the day. For her, it was the need to make sure everything was just right for her important guest. She felt she didn't have time to be still. So when I'm mentoring my teachers in training, which I do a little bit of, one of the things I say to them is to stop and just observe and mull over what they are seeing, to not feel like they always need to be seen doing something. We can learn so much from just quietly contemplating. And when we are quietly contemplating with God, then I think we do get to deepen our relationship and learn from him. But this quiet contemplation in the midst of our busy lives can be really hard sometimes. So back to when I'm at preschool, my home away from home. When I'm there, when I'm at preschool, I am what I would describe myself as an active participant. I wear heaps of different hats, often all at the same time. And I try and juggle lots of different people's needs and wants between supporting my diverse learners, developmentally and physically, and even just my neurotypical learners, all of them, all of those children all have individual needs and wants and different ways of learning. I need to mentor and encourage my teachers. I need to support my other staff. I need to support my parents, some of who end up in my office crying, and I have to talk to them about why they're crying. I have to do compliance stuff, which I hate, admin stuff, which is less hateful but still difficult. I have to make sure we have financial viability. I have to feel like, sometimes I'm torn between two places. I have to be in my office at times, but I also need to be in the classroom. Yesterday, I was down at work with a vet doing midwife skills on a sheep. So, it's just like add a little string to my bow. And adding to that this year, obviously COVID, but all the pressures that have come from sicknesses and ill health in our staff and in our families, it all gets a little bit overwhelming at times. Means I often will turn up early in the morning and leave late at the end of the day. And I've done lots of stuff, but I don't know how well I've connected with God during my day. And then by the time I get home, I'm often too exhausted to think about that. And yet, as Martha was reminded by Jesus, the most important thing, the first thing to do, is to be with Jesus, to be with God. As I said, I understand all this process. It's a work in progress. And because my role is often needs-based, I often do feel like a Martha. But sometimes I do bring it upon myself because, like Martha, I feel like I've got to do it all by myself. So that was okay. That side of things was fine. But then there's the neighbourly thing. So actually, some people will know this about me because they've spent time with me. Some people may not know this about me, but I'm not actually naturally sociable. I actually like peace and quiet, and I don't socialise terribly well unless it's about sharing and caring and talking about things that I know about and caring for those who need support. I'm fine with that. I'm okay, but day-to-day chit-chat and finding things to connect with people that I don't know how to connect with them, that's actually really difficult for me. So the thought of going and knocking on some person's door and saying, "Hi, my name's Janet, can I talk to you about God?" is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I do know people that can do that, who can walk down the street, go for a half-hour walk and come back 4 hours later having had meaningful conversations with a bulk of people. I've got this beautiful young teacher at preschool. She's only 22 years old, and she oozes confidence. She can talk to anybody and everybody and remember everything about them. And I just stare at her in awe and amazement, thinking, what a blessing she is, because she's that kind of person. I have to work really hard on that. And so when I read the chapters that Colin sent me that talked about neighbouring, I did. I thought, I can't even go down that track because that's so not me. And yet, then I was reminded in Matthew, Jesus tells me that the top 2 commandments are to love God and love my neighbour. So does that actually mean I need to organise street parties? Thankfully, I can say that God understands me and knows me. Psalm 139 verse 2 says that you know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. God knows what I am good at. He knows what I can do with a little nudging, and he knows what I struggle with. At times, God may want to take me a bit out of my comfort zone, but God is gentle and kind, and I don't believe he wants me terrorised. At our home group on Thursday, we were talking about last week's video message, and probably the key message I got out of that was that we first need to focus on our connection with God. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths." So to me, what that's saying is before we make our connections with others, we need first to connect with God. He will then direct us as to what relationships we need to focus on and how we can support and minister to those around us. God desires us to first be Mary, to choose what is better. This doesn't actually exclude us from being Marthas at times, though. Throughout the Bible, we're called to heal the brokenhearted and the oppressed, to set the prisoners free, to bring sight to the blind, and to show hospitality and kindness, just to name a few things. But if being a Martha stops us from first being a Mary, then we've got it wrong. We need to first seek God, and then he will direct our paths. So I really struggled knowing how to finish this. And then I thought, you know what? I can't tell you how to connect with others because I find that difficult. What I can suggest is that we connect first with God, that he is the person who directs us. So I'd like us just to take a little time now to do some contemplation, some thinking about God and about what God has in store for you for your lives. So we might just spend a couple of minutes in quiet and silence, and then I'm hoping the worship team's got another song. Yep, sweet. So then after a period of time they can come up and we can close with the service. But yeah, my prayer would be that you would just enable God to talk to you, that you would just find that connection with God. And maybe that may mean you ask him, who would you like me to connect with this week? What can I do? So be Mary first, so then you can be Martha.